Motorcycle prices can be pretty eye-watering nowadays, but the good news is that there are still plenty of quick bikes under 10 grand in 2023. So here are the 7 best in terms of power to weight ratio, and naturally, we're going in reverse order. Now to be clear, we've taken the peak power figure for each bike, divided it by its claimed curb weight fully fueled, combined with the weight of an average UK male. Now according to Google, that's 85.4 kilograms, which was a bit of a surprise, but there you go, bike power divided by its curb weight plus a typical tubby UK rider gives you a rough idea of its power to weight and therefore quickness. And yes, there's other stuff that goes into straight line speed, but this should give us a decent enough idea, and I have to say, I was pretty surprised by the winner. So bringing up the rear in 7th place, we've got the Honda CB750 Hornet, which is well below the price threshold at £6,999, which seems like an absolute steal. At the heart of it, you've got their new 750 parallel twin, which makes a bit over 90 horsepower, and it's proper lively too, and it's perhaps surprisingly a bit of a mini hooligan bike. Weight is decent too, 190 kilograms curb according to Honda, with them specifically calling out the frame as having had particular attention in the weight-saving department and tipping the scales at just 16.6 kilograms. With the rider weight on top, that's 0.327 horsepower per kilogram, and I'd definitely recommend this one to anyone looking for a fun, pokey bike with a great exhaust note, but on a bit of a strict budget. It's the most affordable bike on this list by at least £1,000, and yet it never fails to entertain. Next up, we've got KTM with their 790 Duke, and so another peppy parallel twin that's built to a budget-friendly price. You see, the 790 previously existed in the KTM lineup before it was upgraded a couple of years back to the 890 by enlarging the engine. That left a bit of a gap though in the sort of middleweight affordable segment with bikes like the Honda, and so now for 2023 they brought it back, but this time it's built out in China by their partners at Moto to keep the cost down. Genuinely, we borrowed one for a couple of weeks, and the initial impressions of the build quality are that it's super hard to tell it apart from an Austrian-built KTM, and it still gets plenty of punch too, 94 horsepower to be precise, and so a little more than the Honda, and then you've got 188 kilogram curb weight, so a couple less kilos, and that means it comes in at 0.344 horsepower per kilogram with a typical rider. So I thoroughly recommend this bike too, and whilst engine character and oomph are pretty similar between this and the Hornet, there is a big difference, and that's the riding position. The Hornet sits low at 795mm in the seat height, and so it's nice and beginner friendly, good around town, but the KTM is up at 825mm in the seat, so a 35mm difference, and it feels much more like a proper big bike, and so perhaps better for those looking for a more aggressive riding position for carving up bends. Now we're taking a big step up in price here towards the top end of the budget, and this one is the BMW F900R. I was surprised to see this bike this high up in the list, because when I reviewed it a couple of years back, I came away from it feeling a bit flat. Again, we've got a parallel twin, but this one makes 105 horsepower, and I think that's it. I was expecting it to feel pretty spicy. Perhaps it's the electronics, the throttle map, or the way the power's delivered, or it could be the extra weight. This one comes in at 211 kilograms, but yeah, it just felt a bit flat to me and didn't quite have the wow factor I was expecting from the spec sheet. Still, decent figures and a good price. This one's also made in China, and so that gives it 5th place on this list. It's also worth adding that they're running them in a single make series in the UK at the moment to support British superbikes, and I've got to admit, I've heard those bikes in the flesh with the full Arrow race system, and they do sound pretty sweet, so maybe that would help to make it a bit more exciting. At 4, we've got the Tuono 660 from Aprilia, and they've recently slashed the prices on their website, and so 10 grand will actually now get you the up-spec'd factory version with fully adjustable suspension and a 6-axis inertial measurement unit that gives you lean-sensitive rider aids. But for this list, the key figures are that you also get a few more horsepower to bring it up to 100 peak, and also they've shed a couple of kilograms to bring the curb weight down to a very impressive 181 kg. That makes it the lightest bike on this list, but the relatively modest power can't quite get it to the top with 0.375 horsepower per kilogram with the average rider on board. I've got to say though, although I've admittedly not tried the Tuono 660 factory yet, I've borrowed the RS 660, which is its slightly more sporty sibling, and I absolutely loved it. The engine is a peach, the handling excellent, it was surprisingly comfortable, and it's a great looking bike too. Into the top 3, and we've got the Kawasaki Z900 900 at just under 9,700. Now this bike really stands out for many reasons. Firstly, being the first non-parallel twin on this list, which makes a very nice change. And the Revy 948cc inline 4 is also the most powerful bike on the list, with 123 horsepower at 9,500 RPM. On the flip side, it's the heaviest bike on the list too, at 212 kilograms curb, and so not quite enough to challenge the top two with 0.414 horsepower per kilogram. Still, if you want a sub 10k inline 4, then this is one of your best options, and I've ridden this one on the track and had plenty of fun with it. In at 2, we've got the Yamaha MT-09. No surprises here because it's always represented good, affordable fun. You get that beautiful CP3 inline triple, which makes bags of torque and mid-range, as well as a respectable 117 horsepower at the top. This is one of my favourite engines to ride on the road, also in the more retro-looking XSR 900, and then it's pretty slender too at 189 kilograms curb. That's a big weight saving over the Z900. The MT-09 is a great all-rounder. It's fast, light, agile, and yet with a surprisingly upright riding position that makes it feel like it could be a fairly practical machine too. But topping the bill, we've got the Triumph Street Triple 765R, and as I said, it was a bit of a surprise. Perhaps because I don't always associate Triumphs with being the cheapest, but actually if you look across their lineup, there are a few bikes like this that are really quite aggressive on price. Then you've got the fact that it's quite a bit down on displacement versus the Kawasaki and the Yamaha. But still, the 765 Triple is good for 118.4 horsepower if you wind it up to 11,500 RPM, and yet it's just as light as the Yamaha at 189 kilograms, and so that gives it a winning power to weight of 0.43. But realistically, on the road, the Yamaha has all that extra guts in the mid-range, and so I reckon under acceleration it might well edge it, but let me know which bike you think would win down in the comments below. Also, if you've got the extra cash, then there's always the RS version of the Street Triple, which gets you another 10 horsepower, as well as plenty of other choice upgrades across the whole bike. So if you want to see my comparison of the two from the international press launch shot earlier this year, then it's on the screen now so you can give it a click and give it a watch. Many thanks for watching today, and we'll catch you in the next one.